Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome, and today I'm going to be just doing a quick update on what the state of AI, local AI is currently, and I've been pretty busy with local stuff. As you can see on the screen, you'll see a bunch of tests. So this is actually an evaluation lab that I vibe coded with GPT 5.5 Codex, and it's pretty simple. Just give it a bunch of instructions, and it gets you pretty good UI. You can drop your tests in here. And so what I basically primarily use this for, as you can see, is just storing all of the SVG and HTML tests that I do on models to evaluate and see what settings work for that model or might not work for that model. And the reason I do this is because the actual settings that I would be using locally really impact the quality of the text generation or code generation. So for example, the model providers do in fact give a guidance on what inference settings to use, such as 0.95 as the top P, min P like 0 or something, and temperature 1 or 0.6, but they don't actually really matter sometimes depending on the quantization. And because I'm using really heavily quantized models, I have to test if those inference settings still hold up. So that's why I have this. So I just want to show you quickly some tests because it's visually we can look at it. As you can see, you can even from the top row, we have one car that's completely mismatched, this red one, and that's actually Kimi K2.6 Q3. So the quantization also matters depending on how many errors it will make in the actual generation. So in this case, we have Kimi kind of messing up part of the generation here, whereas some of the newer models, I actually kind of like the MiMo models. They're kind of good actually. So I do want to cover that as well in this video. So just quickly, Xiaomi actually is a Chinese phone maker and car maker, and they've produced a couple of models. The called MiMo V2.5 Pro, which is a 1 trillion parameter model, is on par with Kimi K2.6, and a smaller model which is MiMo V2.5. And they're all trained on 48 trillion tokens. So this is a lot of training. I think it's actually more training than GLM or Kimi. And by that score, you can actually see them right here on artificial analysis, all the way at the top. You also have the lower one, which I should add here, the base version. And so the smaller version is, I believe, 300 billion parameters. It is on par with MiniMax and a DeepSeek V4 Pro as well as GLM. So they're pretty much in that gap there, or similar to GPT 5.4 Mini X High. So that is actually a really good score, but I try to judge them mostly on how well do they perform after quantization. So as you can see here, we have a couple of pretty successful runs with the MiMo. In this case, we have a nice car SVG here. We also have the IQ3 XSS V2.5 Pro model, which is also quantized quite heavily over here. And I did cheat on a couple of these because I was testing some of the settings, such as aerostat, so that would play a bit of a part in adjusting how the image looks and how many errors it makes. But in general, this was pretty good. Here's GLM 5.1. And obviously we have Kimi K2.6 as well. This is a pretty good image of a car, and mostly we are looking for how many errors they make. Also, I'll just quickly scroll through here. Some of them are, of course, dynamic. So this is a dynamic scene in an SVG that they made. And we have a couple here from MiMo. This is the QKXL UD version from Unsloth. Also pretty good. I've been kind of happy with them. And I'm also testing some of the smaller models that can also draw SVGs. This is basically a Gemma 4, but quantized down. So that's the naming convention of that one. There's a Gemma 431 billion parameter, also pretty good. I also want to show you guys, here's GLM 5.1. So this is a bit of a smaller quant, about 300 or so gigabytes, 320. It's not the largest. It's pretty crushed actually, but as you can see, it did a really good job here. It has trees, sunset, and there's actually wires here. I don't know if you can see that, but there are wires between the telephone poles. So this is quite actually a good SVG. So GLM is still holding up very well. And as you can see, once you drop the quantization off these models to Q5KM, for instance, they do start to break down. So if I was going to be using this, I would really have to put up MinP setting so that it makes less errors, but it also reduces creativity in this case. So there is going to be a trade-off. I also tried a bunch of stuff like pandas. That was pretty popular. So here's GLM 5.1. Sorry, this is Capybara actually. Capybara, and there are a few ones here. Some of the notable mentions is like once you start, I don't know, I had a bunch of trouble with Kimi for some reason. Like that's cute, but it's pretty simple, and it's not as detailed. And like here's another Kimi generation, which is pretty simple. Like the actual, there's not much detail in there, but it's very good still, right? I also wanted to show you guys some of the Pelican SVGs, and you can see we have MiniMax here. We have Kimi Instant, I believe, this moonshot Kimi K2.6 with a bit of a different setting here. And my favorite is the MiMo V2.5. So again, this is also a really good one. This is MiMo V2.5 Pro UD IQ3. I will be testing the larger one as well. I'm just downloading it, but every single download is like 500 gigabytes, so it's kind of taxing on the internet. Also, these tests take a long time to render. Here's the MiMo V2.5 UD KXL of the Capybara. It's honestly like these are pretty good tests. I would honestly set these up for myself. If you can use the free Codex version, it doesn't take too many points. And this is the PS4 test. All of them are quite difficult, and none of them really did a really good job. Gwen 3.6 27B probably did a pretty good job compared to the other ones. Here's MiMo. As you can see, the shape of the PS4 controller is really hard to get in one pass. So that's where all of these models struggle at. For instance, this was like the closest shape with MiMo, but again, this is like 3 parts to the controller. So yeah, and the way I run it is basically it there is a backend selector. So I would select a backend here and then set out my settings. And I have a bunch of these tests here so I can run them all at the same time. And I can also add tests, etc. And then when they're done, they just pop into my gallery there. So that's what I've been doing so far, having fun with it. And honestly, I would try and use some of these MiMo models. They are quite good. This has been quite a couple of months on the local AI side, especially with these Quen 3.6 27 billion parameter and the MTP now coming in, making these models faster. Also, MiMo does have MTP, but it's not currently being used, or it's not in llama.cpp yet. I also was using OMLX on the Mac side, but I have recently just kind of stopped for a bit because I need to test some of these models that are not yet supported on the MLX community front. So the good part of having Mac is you can actually use either Llama CPP GUFs or MLX endpoints, and one of them should work. So there you go. Another last thing is I tried llama.cpp RPC mode, so where you are combining multiple computers together. And in this case, I tried it with a Linux system as well as a Mac, and they worked pretty much within 10 minutes. So that was pretty easy as well. And kind of like anticlimactic because you can just plug them in with an Ethernet and you kind of have more RAM, up to a terabyte in my case. And I ran the full Kimi, wasn't generating at about 9 tokens a second, but it was the full Kimi. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is there's a lot happening in this space, especially with these benchmarks here. The score keeps coming up pretty quickly and you can do a lot of things. So on the last note, actually, I do want to cover is using different kinds of harnesses. So one of the things I did was actually use Claude Code. I tried Claude Code, I tried Codex, OpenCode, I tried VS Code with some of the plugins there. I tried Hermes and obviously OpenClaw. So all these harnesses are basically add-ons that try to make the model better in terms of they give them extra instructions to follow in a certain way. So all we have to do really is click or install one of the harnesses. You can use, honestly, Codex, I would recommend, since we're at the age of AI, and it will actually help you install some of these harnesses. And if you didn't know, you can use Claude CLI with your own models. For instance, here we have Claude Code, and I might have set something up wrong over here. It's probably not pointing to the right endpoint here. That's kind of strange. I do technically have it here. And it will go ahead and generate some pretty good code. You can actually ask it to do a lot of things. It can build skills such as stuff for Hermes, etc. Hermes can use it and launch it. And the reason I am saying this because sometimes you need multiple passes and verifications and corrections when you're running some sort of larger application, etc. So in this case, I do also have some tests that I want to show you, which are game related. So this is a test that was run by GLM, and sorry for your ears, but there you go. You can actually run some games. This is a game that Kimi created, and I wish I could make it a bit bigger. All right, here we go. Anyway, pretty fun to play, honestly, some of these games. And there's another one I created with, well, the model created using Claude Code CLI. I'm just gonna go ahead and find it here somewhere. Give me a second here. Okay, so there's two versions. One is this version, which is the IQ3, the larger MiMo model. But it is basically a copy of Vampire Survivor. So as you can see, it is actually pretty fun to play this. And this was all created the AI model locally. Honestly, soon I'm pretty sure we're going to be playing local games like this. Okay, this was the larger 1 trillion parameter model using Claude Code CLI. And then this one is the Q8KXL, but the smaller model, 300 billion, 15 active. Now this one, I gave it a second chance to improve itself, whereas the other one I did not. So this is the best, actually really fun game I have played in a bit, and the upgrades are going pretty quickly, but it's also kind of chaotic, and I kind of like enjoy it because there's so many on the screen, where you kind of have to like really dodge. There's these missiles going. There are different kinds of mobs that are slower or faster. And this was to basically like a rush mode, trying to survive as long as possible while getting upgrades, and while the other one was more slow paced. So as you can see, we really have to move in this game. So there you go. All the models, all of that was created by the Claude Code. And this was all done locally. All of this was done on the computer that I have None of it was external. The only internet I had to use was downloading the model weights. So the reason I advocate and I like local models is just because I don't see the bill that I have to pay to try to use or create something new or experiment. I can let it run, and all I'm paying for is the electricity for this computer. And that's why I am more motivated to learn, to figure out how they work, explore, and create new things. Whereas if I'm really paying for Open Router, I'm really watching those limits. Now, in the last bit, I've been using Claude as my main helper. Unfortunately, the limits on that were so bad, I had to switch to GPT, and as a 5.5, this was pretty good. Again, I think it's not only the local models versus non-local. You kind of have to use both. Where the larger non-local model kind of helps you with different things, maybe once-off and chats. Sometimes you need to debug, and it's really hard to ask anybody. Whereas the local model can iterate a lot. You don't have to worry about limits. If you need to fix one error somewhere, you can do it yourself, or you can just let the local model run. And some of these local models, like the MiMo, have 1 million token contexts. They really don't slow down anymore. The slowdown is quite minimal, even up to 260k tokens. They kind of fly. Their prompt processing is pretty good with caching. Honestly, this is probably one of the best times to try to learn, to try to use these local models. And for emergencies, I do go out and ask GPT or Claude on what is happening. Can we debug something? For example, the other day, I have a older Windows computer that just started crashing a lot. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what happened with it. So I installed Codex, and I asked ChatGPT, what is happening? Can't believe it. It could be like a driver issue or something, but I didn't know which driver. So it basically installed a auto updater for all applications. And doing that, it updated something. I don't know which packet it did, because I had to go through a lot of them, and it actually fixed it. Some driver was causing my laptop to crash all the time, and Codex really fixed the laptop. I would have had to struggle and waste a lot of my personal time. And this was actually on a free version of Codex because I didn't want to sign in on that account. So I think there are use cases for local as well as cloud models, and I'm not an advocate for either winning. And I think it is important to use them locally just to get an experience of what it is. There are different parameters to tweak. You have chat templates to look through. You have temperatures. There's different inference settings, how different Eurostat or different types of inference affect your distributions. And using this, actually how prompting fixes a certain token distribution, that is like a very, very interesting as well. Okay, so enough ranting. This is basically what I've been doing for a couple of months now, and just enjoying how fast and how advanced how we can play with these models. All right, and hopefully you enjoyed, learned something, And again, if you want to get yourself a sort of application test suite, I would advocate, instead of asking a local model to code it up, maybe ask ChatGPT, a free Codex, no subscription. You could get at least one of these going for yourself. And okay, and let me know if you enjoy this or what you are using local models or cloud models for yourself.